Hey rockers, welcome back to another rock and roll tale. Tonight we're going to talk about Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. And you know, Joan Jett's one of those iconic figures that I've personally been a fan of since I was about 13. I discovered the Runaways album in about 1978, 79. By 1980, I was obsessed with them, and the first band I was ever in 1980 was considering covering a Runaway song, but we never got around to doing that. But yeah, Joan Jett, man, she started out when she was about 16 years old. Of course, the Runaways, one of the most legendary rock and roll bands ever. At the time, they were sort of obscure, and then as time grew, though, and as legend has it, they have gotten big and bigger throughout time to where I wish to gosh they would reunite. But of course, drummer Sandy West is no longer with us. But you still got Cherie Currie on vocals, Joan Jett on guitar, Lita Ford on guitar. Of course, a couple different bass players, including one that they had a big falling out with. And I don't want to, of course, do anything to out her, Jackie Fox. But who knows? Joan Jett. Great, iconic musician that we all love, right? Been a fan for a long time. Of course, you might be familiar with the Runaways movie that came out in 2010 starring Kristen Stewart and Dakota Fanning. Also, of course, Joan Jett was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2015. And before I get into this story, please consider subscribing to my channel, you guys. And you can scroll down the video list and check out all the different stories I've done, including other stories on Joan Jett. So, getting back to the subject at large, Joan Jett, legend, rocker, and somebody that I'm really enamored with. I love Joan Jett, and I know lots of you do too. So here we go. The night that we got to see her, I was with Sister Tracy, who is my co-host and radio co-producer of the Church of Rock radio show. She's not literally my sister. But Sister Tracy and I went to see Joan Jett. It was at the Britt Fest in Jacksonville, Oregon on August 31st, 2014. Of course, the Britt Fest is a really exclusive, cool, two or three season long running festival that happens every few days or every couple times a week. There's like a big concert with lots of types of music, including rock and roll. And this was like the second occasion I was able to meet Joan Jett. So at the end of this video, after I talk about the set list here, I want to tell you what really happened, and that's the real part of this story that you guys should stick around for. It's really the whole story, but the show was great. Okay, I've seen Joan Jett many times, and her performing that night was stellar. For sure. And the band made up that night was Dougie Needles, her long-time guitar player on guitar, legendary Tommy Price on the drums, who used to be with Billy Idol, Scandal, Blue Oyster Cult, and he's been with Joan Jett on and off, but mostly on, for many decades. And of course, for some reason, I don't remember Tommy Price being at this show, but I looked it up and he was. Of course, on the bass was AC Slade. AC Slade, of course, from the Murder Dolls, also a touring bass player for the Misfits, and also in the band Dope. So AC Slade was on bass, and also Kenny Laguna, Joan Jett's longtime manager, on keyboards. He's been with her in the band for years and years as well. And of course, it was a stellar lineup with Joan Jett herself on the rhythm guitar and I think some leads, but doing vocals, of course, and she was just rock star personified, right? We were about, 4 feet in front of her, in front of the whole show. It was stellar. She totally plays to the audience. She's like winking at the crowd, throwing out guitar picks, doing all the really cool rock star moves that she's known for. Let's face it, man, Joan Jett is just one of the most badass rockers of all time, right? So she comes out that night, and her and the Blackhearts start out with Bad Reputation, one of her most famous songs. Then they rip into Cherry Bomb by the Runaways, which, of course, Joan Jett also recorded solo, but the original version with and on the Runaways' first album is the original classic. Then they went into the Gary Glitter classic, Do You Want to Touch Me? And yeah, what a bummer that Gary Glitter went down the path he did. But karma has a way of reaping its just rewards, and he has been imprisoned. So bye-bye to Bad Rubbish. But let's face it, the music Oh man, I love that music. TMI was next on the set list. Then Soulmates to Strangers. Then I was surprised that they did another Runaway song from that debut Runaways album, You Drive Me Wild. That was great because Joan Jett has this really seductive way of playing rock and roll. And when she like looks you in the eye or looks somebody in the eye and you kind of see her do that one-on-one thing, it's very, very intimate. It really is. It's like one-on-one and engaging. She really does connect with her audience, and she's always been very cool to the fans. And you're going to hear about me getting to meet Joan Jett and hanging out for quite a while with her after I'm done with this here set list. Make It Back was next on the list, my friends. And then, of course, Fragile. Love is Pain was up on the set list next. Then Hard to Grow Up. Into the French song. That's a great Joan Jett tune. You know, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts always deliver. She always introduces everybody in the band. It was really cool to see her have such a great band. Like I say, AC Slade and the great Tommy Price and Dougie Needles. You know, they went into Any Weather after that. And then, of course, the big crowd pleaser. And I remember everyone completely singing along and looking around thinking, wow, what a cool, harmonious, joyous moment. But I Love Rock and Roll is a big crowd pleaser, obviously. One of Joni's hugest, most biggest hits. Hugest. I Love Rock and Roll. Yeah, that was awesome, man. And then, of course, they went into Crimson and Clover, the great Tommy James and the Shondells classic. And, of course, I think I said Tommy Laguna. What's his name? Kenny Laguna. Her keyboard player and manager used to be a member of Tommy James and the Shondells. So Crimson and Clover, Joan Jett's version of that is so awesome. Her studio recording, it's so legendary. Then they went into I Hate Myself for Loving You. That is definitely one of the coolest, most sing-along rock and roll songs ever. I love that song. The crowd was going apeshit for that one. It was a good one, man. When Joni and the company left the stage that night, the crowd, of course, was riled up and wanted more. The adrenaline's pumping, and when you see a Joan Jett show, you know what I'm saying? And that's probably not the only thing pumping. Dun da da. But you know, the encore was Everyday People, the Sly and the Family Stone, a classic. By the way, I am a huge fan of Sly and the Family Stone, and I love Sly's solo work as well. And he put a book out recently, and it's okay. It's okay. But when the show is over, here's the interesting part, my friends. Everyone files out. Normally, when there's an event, we'll either like try to meet the artist before or after the show. And usually there's no problem because 9 out of 10 times, whenever I go to any show, they always assume they, meaning security or hangers on like the management or people working at the venues, they always assume I'm either in a band or with a band or in the band. So I kind of weasel my way past a lot of stuff. But at this particular show, it was really weird. After the show, Sister Tracy and I headed outside, and the venue's outside. The Britt Festival is in a natural setting, like it's like built into a mountain, on the side of a mountain, and the stage is down there. It's just really cool. You can either have these great lawn seats where you sit out in the grass, or you can get seats where you buy reserved seating up front by the stage, or you can stand up, standing room only, right in front of the band, which is really cool about the Britt Festival. So we're always like, hey, we're standing as close as we can to get that energy, man. And after the show, we had to meet Joan Jett, right? So I had only met Joan Jett one time previously, and I did a video about that on this channel. You should check it out. It was pretty funny that time. And I wanted to really get to meet her and say hi again. So Sister Tracy and I, both being avid Joan Jett fans, I mean, gosh, our dog is even named Jet. Yep, J-E-T-T. We went around the front of the Britt Fest. People were leaving. We tried to blend in, mill about, so to speak, look like we were supposed to be there, right? But we kept getting shooed away by security. Hey, get out of here. Hey, get off the property. Hey, we're going to call the cops. Just, it was really weird. I'd never had that happen since either. But that night I kept thinking, I wonder if the management's being that way because they just don't want Joni dealing with fans tonight, or if they were just being extra anal at the Britt Fest. I don't know. Normally it's not that big a deal. But you know, what happened was they literally started making sure we were off the property, because I was kind of like, nah, you can't make me leave if I step off the property onto the street kind of thing. And then they were literally like, you know, we'll just call the cops or whatever. I'm like, you know what? It's a really, really small town, Jacksonville, Oregon is. And I thought, I'm not going to push it here. I'm leaving. Plus, I'm not going to be like a stalker, or am I? We were so pissed. We were like, we can't meet Joan because these guys said we can't. Why? So we refused to take no for an answer. And we did meet her, but here's what happened. This is crazy. I thought about it for a minute. I thought, wait a minute, Sister Tracy, when bands leave here, there's only one way to go, and that's that way. So when you're headed down the hill from the Britt Fest, when you're out of the area on the main road going down to the road through town, which is very small, it's an old historic town, pretty cool. But when you get down to the main drag, you take a left, and that takes you to Applegate, Oregon, which is out in the, beautiful scenic area, but nowhere near where you have to go to an airport or a highway or a hotel or anything like that. So there's only one way a band could go, and that's that way, or maybe that way on your side. Either way, we decided to go down there and park on the main drag through town and wait for the big white van that the band was getting ready to get into and be shuttled off to who knows where. Well, we thought, are we being stalkers? Are we being a little bit too groupie-ish? We thought, who gives a damn? And we went for it. We went down there and parked, and I swear to you, 15 minutes later, the van pulls right by us, and Sister Tracy looks at me, and I look at her, and I'm like, should I go for it? And she's like, you should go for it. And we decided not to tailgate them. We didn't want to be too close to, get them mad or have them think, hey, these guys are kind of scary. We stayed back, but we ended up following that white van, kind of white knuckling it, because we knew people were looking back, like noticing that we were following them. And it was like, oh boy, what kind of lines are we crossing? We're not doing anything. We're not threatening anybody. We have no bad intention. And that's the main thing, right? So we went for it. We have no bad intentions. We followed this thing 7+ miles. And by the time we got into Medford, Oregon, we realized the van was going to the airport, the Rogue Valley Airport. And when we got down there, the van surprised us because it didn't go to the regular part of the airport. It pulled into an airport called Million Air. Yep, it's an exclusive airport for people basically that have money, probably people that are in the entertainment business, people that are high rollers, man. But it's a private little airport that people like Joan Jet would fly in and out of instead of the regular one. And they have like their own private airplanes that they kind of charter and stuff to go to the next gig sometimes. That's what Joni does sometimes. This was one of those nights. So what happened was we pull into the airport. We were so PO'd because we went to turn into the regular part because we couldn't see him for a minute. And there was no van. We were like, where'd they go? And then we pull around and there's this Million Air sign. And sure enough, there's a big gate and it's open and they just start to shut it. And then we see the one and only white van in there. And there's a chartered airplane started on the runway back a ways, and there's like a little teeny building next to this fence, and it's closed. Well, we could see Joan Jett with Dougie Needles, the guitarist, and she was down there pretty much milling about, getting ready to leave on the airplane. And me and Tracy thought, okay, we have one chance to get her attention. At this point, we are screwed. We had done stalked her all the way here to the airport, 7+ miles. Here we are behind a stupid fence. And we started going, yeah, Joni, and jumping up and down like a couple of lunatics. It was awesome. And the next thing you knew, after about 30 seconds, I see Joan do this. And she's way back over there by the airplane, right? And she does this. And she starts slowly, tentatively walking towards us, which is quite a distance. Like she had to make sure to verify what she was seeing was real. A couple of nut jobs jumping up and down like fruitcakes, yelling, Joan Jet, we love you. And she was like, she gets a lot closer, right? About halfway between the airplane and us to where we could finally hear her talking. And she goes, what's up, man? You crazy effers. I won't say the word because of YouTube, whatever. But she says, you crazy mother effers. And we're like, yeah, man. I said, we're crazy about you, Joni. And she walked over slowly and she kept on walking. We're like, oh, man, that was a great show tonight. Sorry to be weird, but we just really wanted to meet you, so we kind of followed you here. No ill will intended. And she knew right away by looking at us. Sister Tracy's decked out in head to toe in her long black hair at the time, or cut down to about here, leather jacket, bright white pants on, and she looked like a rocker. She had a cool hat on. And I was decked out with my normal rock and roll attire, whatever I was wearing, who cares? It's irrelevant. But Joni walked up to that fence, so we're on either side of it. We start proclaiming our love for her, of course, like most fans do. She was completely down to earth, super chill, but you could tell she was probably had her adrenaline high going, because that's what happens after you do a good gig like that with all that energy coming at you, and all the energy you're putting out. You have an adrenaline high from hell for a while. So Joni and Dougie Needles walks around the corner, and they're talking to us around through the fence. And we tell them about that we live there and that we love the show, how long we've been fans. And then Joni says, come here, and has to hold my hand through the fence. And so Sister Tracy and Joan Jett are holding hands through the fence. And Tracy was gushing from ear to ear. It was awesome. And I got a couple pictures, and Joan was super kind to me and really, cool, and asking us questions. And after about maybe 12 minutes of talking through the fence for a while, Dougie Needles was talking to us. It was awesome, man. And this guy that works there walks around, and he sees what's going on, and that Joan's talking to a couple people. And he says, that fence opens. And she goes, well, gosh. And then she starts cussing, kind of like a sailor, which was awesome. She's like, well, God, mother effer, open the fence then, man. And so we opened the fence, and Joni and Dougie Needles walk out, and we stood there for at least another 20 minutes. It was really cool. And Joan says, hey, man, do you guys want to take pictures? And then she goes, well, come here. And she gives Tracy a big old long hug. And then she gives me a really long hug. And it's like, I said, look, we have a friend in common. And she's like, who's that? I said, Don Bowles. She goes, oh, yeah, I love Donnie. And because she produced the first Germs album, and Don Bowles is the drummer of the Germs. And at the time, my 30th anniversary album had come out a year before that. The Bloody Mess Rock Circus is the name of the album. Mountain Rock is the title of the album. And right there on the front cover, it says, with guest legends. And I had all these cool guest musicians that were on the album, and Don Bowles was one of those people. So I gave Joni a copy of the CD. She's like, oh, thank you, man. So I like to think she listened to it later. But we talked about the Germs album that she produced. We talked about, punk rock days a little bit from LA. We talked about her current tour. We talked about the show she had just done, and she made some remarks about it, that she thought the audience was great. She seemed a little tired maybe, but again, this is an hour and a half tops past the show, and she's probably is tired. She had just gave us a ton of her great energy, and it was really cool. She was just really engaging and extremely a person of the fans kind of person, like a real person. And you could tell that this woman has lived, eaten, and breathed rock and roll her whole life. I mean, she moved from the East Coast of America to the LA area with her family so that she could pursue her musical dreams, basically. And it didn't take long for Joan Jett to change her name to Joan Jett. And those of you that know her real name. But hey, man, if you're a big Joan Jett fan, leave me a comment. Please subscribe to the channel. Maybe like the video if you legitimately liked it. And if you want to share it, feel free. I appreciate you guys hearing my stories. It's a lot of fun. I'll try to do another one as soon as humanly possible. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm trying to be on a roll here. I was on a roll for a while, man. Now I'm just kind of on a walk, like a slow snail's pace. And sorry about that, man. But I do appreciate you guys subscribing and being here. And I'm trying to think, was there any other details about Joan Jett that night? We took a ton of pictures. She was just super intimate with us. Well, not in that kind of way, but I couldn't believe it. There's not many rockers except for Iggy Pop that I've met, and maybe Tiny Tim, that are that engaging with their fans. But Iggy Pop and Joan Jett are on pretty big levels. Most rockers would never give you the time of day for that long. And those people live, eat, and breathe rock and roll. So hallelujah, long live rock and roll. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Cheers.